Picture a room where every light refuses to turn off, every corner illuminated, every shadow examined, every detail magnified until the simple becomes impossibly complex. This is the landscape of the overthinking mind. It feels like drowning in questions that have no answers, like standing at a crossroads where every path splits into 1,000 more paths, each one demanding consideration, analysis, evaluation. The mind becomes a courtroom where the same case is tried over and over, new evidence constantly submitted, the verdict never quite final. There's a particular weight to it, a heaviness that settles in the chest, as if the heart itself is tired from carrying all these thoughts. Sleep becomes elusive because the mind, even in darkness, continues its endless examination. A casual conversation replays for days. A simple decision expands into an elaborate mental debate. A passing comment lodges itself deep and grows roots. It feels like being trapped in a maze of one's own making. Each thought branches into another and another and another, until the original concern is buried under layers of hypothetical scenarios, imagined consequences, and endless what-ifs. The present moment slips away, replaced by either the regrets of yesterday or the anxieties of tomorrow. There's an exhaustion that comes with it. Not the pleasant tiredness after physical exertion, but a mental fatigue that no amount of rest seems to cure. The mind runs marathons while the body sits still. Energy drains not from doing, but from thinking about doing, thinking about not doing, thinking about having thought too much about it all. Yet there's also something almost addictive about it. The overthinking mind believes that somewhere in all this analysis lies safety, control, the perfect answer. If only every angle is considered, every risk evaluated, every possibility examined, then surely nothing can go wrong. The irony, of course, is that all this thinking often prevents any action at all, trapping the thinker in a paralysis of their own creation. It feels like living with a volume knob stuck on maximum. Everything is louder, sharper, more intense than it needs to be. A minor mistake becomes a catastrophe in the mind's amplification. A small uncertainty swells into existential crisis. The emotional experience of life is constantly heightened, not through external drama, but through internal magnification. And perhaps most painfully, it feels isolating. While others seem to move through life with an ease that appears almost magical, the overthinker watches from within their fortress of thoughts, wondering how everyone else makes it look so simple. There's a loneliness in believing that one's mind works differently, processes differently, struggles with things that others seem to handle effortlessly. The roots of overthinking run deep, tangled in the soil of both nature and experience. Understanding these origins doesn't erase the pattern, but it does soften the self-judgment that often accompanies it. Some minds are simply wired for depth. From the earliest moments of consciousness, certain humans have been questioners, wonderers, analyzers. Where one child accepts the sky's blueness without thought, another child asks why, how, what if it were different? This isn't learned behavior in its inception. It's an inherent characteristic, a particular configuration of neural pathways that seeks pattern, meaning, and understanding. The sensitive nervous system plays its role. Some humans are born with what researchers call high sensitivity, an attribute that affects roughly 20% of the population. These nervous systems process stimuli more thoroughly, notice subtleties others miss, and feel experiences more intensely. The same event that barely registers for one person can reverberate through a sensitive system for days, not because of weakness, but because of depth of processing. Then there's the influence of early experience. A child who grew up in unpredictability learns to scan for danger, to anticipate problems, to think several steps ahead as a survival mechanism. When the environment is unstable, the mind becomes hypervigilant, always analyzing, always preparing, always trying to find safety through prediction. This adaptation, once necessary, often persists long after the danger has passed. Perfectionism plants its seeds early. Perhaps there was praise for achievement and criticism for failure. Perhaps love felt conditional, earned through performance rather than freely given. The mind learns that mistakes are unacceptable, that everything must be carefully considered, that every action must be flawless. Overthinking becomes the tool used to avoid the pain of imperfection. Past hurts teach the mind to protect. A betrayal, a rejection, a moment of shame that cut deeply. These experiences leave marks. The mind, in its attempt to prevent future pain, begins to rehearse every scenario, examine every interaction for signs of danger, replay past events, searching for what went wrong and how to prevent it from happening again. The overthinking becomes armor, heavy and restrictive, but armor nonetheless. Anxiety often walks hand in hand with overthinking, sometimes as cause, sometimes as effect, often both simultaneously. An anxious mind seeks control through analysis. If every possibility can be anticipated, perhaps the outcome can be controlled, but the analysis itself generates more anxiety, which demands more analysis, creating a self-sustaining cycle that's difficult to exit. The information age has added fuel to this fire. Constant connectivity means constant input. The mind that already tends toward overthinking now has endless material to process. Every notification is a potential crisis. Every news cycle brings new worries. Every social media post invites comparison, judgment, analysis. The modern world feeds the overthinking mind an all-you-can-eat buffet when what it needs is a carefully portioned meal. There's also the matter of intelligence, though this truth is uncomfortable. Minds capable of seeing multiple perspectives, of understanding complexity, of grasping nuance, these minds naturally generate more thoughts. The ability to see 10 sides of a situation, while valuable in many contexts, can paralyze decision-making in others. Intelligence without grounding becomes a prison of endless consideration. Unprocessed emotions fuel the engine of overthinking. When feelings are pushed down rather than felt, when sadness is rationalized away, when anger is intellectualized rather than expressed, these emotions don't disappear. They transform into thoughts. The mind tries to think its way through what can only be felt its way through. The overthinking becomes a substitute for emotional processing, a poor substitute that never quite satisfies. And sometimes overthinking stems from a lack of trust in oneself. Perhaps past decisions led to painful consequences. Perhaps criticism from others internalized into self-doubt. The mind begins to second-guess every impulse, question every instinct, analyze every choice, because the trust in one's own judgment has eroded. Without that foundation of self-trust, every decision becomes monumental, requiring endless deliberation. Walk through any gathering of humans and the difference becomes apparent. Some move through life with a lightness that seems almost careless. A mistake made, a shrug offered, and onward they go. Others carry every experience like stones in their pockets, examining each one repeatedly, unable to set them down. This isn't about weakness or strength. It's about fundamental differences in how human minds are constructed and how they've been shaped by experience. The depth processors naturally overthink. Their minds don't skim surfaces, they dive deep. Present them with a simple question, and they uncover layers of complexity invisible to others. This depth is their gift and their burden. They see nuances, understand implications, grasp interconnections that others miss entirely. But this same capacity means they cannot help but think more, process more, consider more. Their minds are built for thoroughness, and thoroughness takes time and energy. Then there are those who've learned that thinking ahead prevents pain. Perhaps they grew up in chaos where anticipating problems meant survival. Perhaps they experienced consequences that could have been avoided with more foresight. Their overthinking is a strategy, once adaptive, now often excessive. But understanding its origins softens judgment. The mind is simply doing what it learned to do to stay safe. Contrast this with those who seem to just laugh it off. Often, these are minds that either process more quickly or more shallowly, and neither is inherently better. Some people genuinely don't notice the subtleties that torment overthinkers. They miss the nuance, the implication, the deeper meaning, and this lack of awareness protects them from the weight of overthinking. They're not stronger, they're simply operating with different perceptual equipment. Others who seem carefree have learned to suppress rather than process. They appear light because they've become skilled at pushing thoughts away, at forcing themselves not to dwell, at maintaining a surface-level engagement with life. This too has its costs, though different ones. Suppressed thoughts don't disappear. They simply move underground, emerging later in different forms. Some humans possess what might be called psychological resilience, a bounce-back quality that's partly genetic, partly developed. When they stumble, they naturally focus forward rather than backward. When they make mistakes, they extract the lesson quickly and move on. This isn't a choice they make, it's how their system naturally operates. The overthinker, by contrast, possesses a different kind of system, one that prioritizes thoroughness over speed, depth over movement. The highly conscientious overthink because they care deeply. Their standards are high, their sense of responsibility profound. They cannot simply not care because caring is woven into their nature. Every action matters to them. Every word carries weight. Every decision has consequences they feel obligated to consider. This conscientiousness makes them reliable, thorough, and trustworthy. It also makes them prone to endless deliberation. Empaths and highly sensitive people overthink because they absorb so much. They don't just hear words. They feel the emotions behind them. They don't just observe events. They sense the energies swirling around them. Their minds work overtime trying to process not just their own experience, but the experiences they've absorbed from everyone around them. The overthinking becomes an attempt to sort through all this input, to make sense of the emotional and energetic data their systems cannot help but collect. Creative minds often overthink because they see possibilities everywhere. Where others see one path, they see 20. Where others see a finished project, they see endless ways it could be different, better, more meaningful. This creative vision is their genius, but it also means their minds never quite settle. Every decision opens up into a garden of forking paths, each one worth exploring in imagination, making the actual choice agonizingly difficult. And then there are those rare few who genuinely don't hold things, and there's wisdom in understanding them too. Often, these people live more in their bodies than their heads. They feel experiences physically, express emotions immediately, and then release them. There's no accumulation because there's constant flow. The overthinker might learn from this, not to become like them, but to understand that release is possible, that holding isn't the only option. Overthinking is a double-edged sword, cutting both ways with equal sharpness. To understand it fully requires holding both truths simultaneously. It is both gift and burden, both strength and weakness, both treasure and trap. The curse reveals itself most obviously. Overthinking steals the present moment with ruthless efficiency. While life unfolds in real time, the overthinking mind dwells in yesterday's conversations or tomorrow's possibilities. The now, where life actually happens, slips by unnoticed, unlived. A beautiful sunset goes unappreciated because the mind is replaying an awkward interaction from earlier. A meaningful conversation is half heard because thoughts about an upcoming decision dominate awareness. The cost is presence, and presence is where life is found. Overthinking breeds paralysis. When every option must be exhaustively analyzed, when every potential consequence must be considered, action becomes nearly impossible. The overthinker stands frozen at crossroads while others stride forward with far less information. Opportunities close while deliberation continues. Life asks for movement, but overthinking demands more time to think, always more time, until the moment for action has passed entirely. The exhaustion is real and relentless. Mental energy is finite, yet overthinking spends it lavishly on thoughts that often lead nowhere. The mind runs elaborate simulations of conversations that will never happen, problems that will never arise, scenarios that will never unfold. All this expenditure leaves little energy for actual living, actual creating, actual being. The overthinker ends the day drained despite having accomplished little, worn out from battles fought entirely in imagination. Anxiety feeds on overthinking like fire feeds on oxygen. Each thought spirals into another, each worry branches into 10 more. The what if becomes what if that leads to becomes what if that causes, until a minor concern has expanded into catastrophe. The body responds to these imagined threats as if they were real, flooding with stress hormones, tightening with tension, preparing for dangers that exist only in thought. The price paid in physical and emotional well-being is steep. Relationships suffer under the weight of overthinking. Every text message is analyzed for hidden meaning. Every tone is interpreted and reinterpreted. Every silence screams with imagined significance. The overthinker brings such intensity to interactions that others may feel scrutinized, misunderstood, or exhausted by the constant need to clarify, explain, reassure. Spontaneity dies when every word must be carefully chosen, every action thoroughly considered. Yet to see only the curse is to miss half the truth. Overthinking carries within it profound gifts that the world desperately needs. The overthinker sees what others miss. While most skim the surface, the overthinking mind dives deep and discovers treasures hidden in the depths. Patterns emerge that others don't notice. Connections form that others don't perceive. Problems are anticipated before they fully materialize. This foresight, though exhausting, has value. The overthinker often sees the consequences others overlook, the implications others ignore, the complexities others oversimplify. Depth of thought produces depth of insight. The overthinker doesn't just know things, they understand them. They've turned concepts over in their mind so many times that they've examined every facet, tested every assumption, questioned every conclusion. This thoroughness, when channeled well, produces wisdom. It creates thinkers who can hold nuance, appreciate complexity, and offer perspectives that simple minds cannot access. Overthinking often correlates with deep empathy. The mind that endlessly considers how its words might be received, how its actions might affect others, what other people might be thinking or feeling. This mind possesses a capacity for understanding that enriches all relationships. Yes, it can be excessive, but at its core lies a beautiful sensitivity to the inner worlds of others. The overthinker often knows how to truly listen, how to read between lines, how to sense what isn't being said. Creativity flourishes in the overthinking mind, the constant generation of thoughts, the endless what-ifs, the continuous mental exploration. All of this creates fertile ground for innovation. Artists, writers, inventors, problem solvers often possess overthinking minds. Their curse becomes their creative engine. Where others see one solution, they see 20. Where others accept the status quo, they imagine alternatives. The art, the innovation, the breakthroughs that move humanity forward often emerge from minds that simply cannot stop thinking. Conscientiousness, that quality of caring deeply about doing things well, of taking responsibility seriously, of maintaining high standards, this grows naturally from overthinking. The overthinker makes a reliable friend, a thorough employee, a trustworthy confidant. They think through the consequences of their actions. They consider how their choices affect others. They don't take commitments lightly because they've thought through what those commitments mean. The overthinker often possesses a moral complexity that serves society. They don't accept simple answers to complex questions. They think through ethical implications. They consider multiple perspectives before judging. They understand that most situations contain nuance, that few things are purely black or white. This moral sophistication, though personally taxing, makes them thoughtful citizens, fair judges of situations, and people who truly think before speaking or acting. There's also something to be said for the richness of inner life that overthinking creates. Yes, it can be torturous, but it can also be extraordinarily rich. The overthinker lives in a world of ideas, of imagined possibilities, of deep reflection. Their internal landscape is vast and varied. They're rarely bored because their minds provide endless entertainment, albeit sometimes unwanted. There's a depth to their existence that, when not overwhelming, can be profoundly meaningful. The key lies not in eliminating overthinking, which may be impossible for those wired this way, but in learning to harness its gifts while mitigating its costs. The blessing exists. The curse exists. Both are real. The question becomes how to live with this mind in a way that honors its gifts while finding peace despite its challenges. Learning to live with overthinking isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about befriending what is. It's about developing a relationship with the mind that's based on understanding rather than warfare, on acceptance rather than rejection. Recognize the pattern without judgment. The first step is simple awareness without the added burden of self-criticism. Notice when overthinking begins. Feel it starting, that familiar pull into analysis, that spiral into endless consideration. But notice it gently, the way one might notice clouds gathering before rain. There's no shame in how the mind works. The pattern exists. Seeing it clearly, without the overlay of "this is wrong" or "why am I like this," creates space for something new to emerge. Name it and externalize it. When overthinking begins, try naming it. There's overthinking happening. This simple act of labeling creates a tiny bit of distance. The thought becomes something observed rather than something that defines the observer. Some find it helpful to personify the overthinking mind, to see it almost as a separate entity, perhaps an overprotective parent or a worried friend who means well but sometimes helps too much. This externalization prevents complete identification with the pattern. Set boundaries with the thinking mind. Just as one might set boundaries with a person who demands too much attention, boundaries can be set with thoughts. This doesn't mean suppression, it means gentle redirection. Thank you for this thought, but I'm choosing to focus elsewhere right now. Or, I'll consider this during my designated thinking time, but not in this moment. The mind learns slowly that not every thought requires immediate, complete attention. Create designated thinking time. This practice is surprisingly effective. Set aside specific time, perhaps 20 minutes, for the mind to think through whatever it needs to consider. During this time, overthink freely. Write it all out. Examine every angle. But when this time ends, gently redirect thoughts that arise outside this window. The mind often calms when it knows it will have time to process, when it's not being asked to stop thinking altogether, just to think at specific times. Ground in the body. The overthinking mind lives in the head, spinning in abstraction, lost in imagined scenarios. The body is anchor to present reality. Feel the breath moving. Notice the sensation of feet on ground. Pay attention to sounds in the environment. These aren't distractions from important thoughts. They're returns to what's actually happening. The body knows only now. Spending time in bodily awareness teaches the mind what presence feels like. Move the body regularly. Physical movement interrupts mental patterns. A walk changes the thought stream. Exercise releases the tension that accumulated thought creates. Dance shakes loose, stuck energy. Yoga connects breath and body in ways that quiet mental noise. The overthinking mind benefits enormously from regular movement, not because movement solves anything, but because it provides respite and reminds the system that life includes more than thinking. Practice the art of good enough. Perfectionism fuels overthinking. The belief that perfect decisions exist, that perfect actions are possible, that mistakes must be avoided at all costs. This belief drives endless analysis. Learning to embrace good enough is revolutionary for the overthinker. Most decisions don't require perfect information. Most actions don't need to be flawless. Good enough actually is good enough in the vast majority of life's moments. Limit information input. The overthinking mind processes everything it encounters. Too much input creates overwhelm. Be selective about news consumption, social media time, the number of choices considered. Sometimes less information leads to better decisions because the essential factors become clearer when not buried under mountains of extraneous data. Protect the mind from unnecessary input the way one might protect the body from unnecessary toxins. Develop tolerance for uncertainty. Much overthinking stems from the desire to eliminate uncertainty, to know for sure, to guarantee outcomes. But life is inherently uncertain. No amount of thinking changes this. Learning to be uncomfortable with not knowing, to take action despite uncertainty, to accept that clarity often comes through doing rather than through thinking. This tolerance gradually loosens overthinking's grip. Process emotions directly. Often, overthinking is a detour around feeling. Rather than feel sadness, the mind analyzes why the sadness exists. Rather than experience anger, the mind debates whether the anger is justified. But emotions want to be felt, not thought about. Creating space to simply feel without analysis or judgment allows emotions to move through naturally. When feelings are processed directly, there's less need to process them mentally. Practice self-compassion relentlessly. The overthinking mind often turns its analytical powers inward, creating harsh self-judgment. Each mistake is examined mercilessly. Each flaw is magnified. This self-criticism adds suffering to suffering. Practicing self-compassion means treating oneself with the kindness usually reserved for others. When overthinking begins, rather than criticizing this pattern, try, "This is hard. Many people struggle with this. May I be kind to myself in this moment." Find your form of meditation. Meditation for the overthinker need not look traditional. Sitting in silence might initially amplify thought rather than quiet it. But meditation takes many forms. Walking meditation, creating art with full attention, gardening with presence, listening to music completely, cooking mindfully. Any activity that absorbs attention fully becomes meditation. The goal isn't to stop thinking, but to practice focusing attention where chosen rather than where thought drags it. Question the thoughts. Not every thought deserves belief. The overthinking mind generates thousands of thoughts daily, many of them speculation, catastrophizing, or pure invention. Learning to question thoughts rather than automatically believing them creates freedom. Is this thought true? How do I know it's true? What evidence exists against it? What would I tell a friend who thought this? These questions create space between thought and belief. Accept that the mind works this way. This might be the most important practice of all. Fighting against the nature of the mind creates additional suffering. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation, it means acknowledgement. This is how my mind works. It thinks deeply, it processes thoroughly, it considers extensively. This is neither good nor bad, it simply is. From this foundation of acceptance, change becomes possible in ways that fighting never achieves. Build a support system. Living with an overthinking mind can feel isolating. Finding others who understand, whether friends, family, therapists, or support groups makes the journey less lonely. Sometimes just saying aloud, "I'm overthinking this," to someone who understands brings relief. Community reminds the overthinker that they're not alone, not broken, not the only one struggling with a mind that never quite rests. Channel it into creation. The energy of overthinking can be directed. Writing captures swirling thoughts and gives them form. Art expresses what cannot be fully thought through. Problem solving in work or hobbies harnesses analytical energy productively. The goal isn't to stop the thinking, but to give it useful direction, to transform mental energy into something tangible and meaningful. The deeper understanding. 8 minutes. Beneath all the strategies and practices lies a deeper truth that the overthinking mind needs to absorb. Thinking is not the enemy. The mind is not broken. There is nothing fundamentally wrong with a mind that thinks deeply, processes thoroughly, considers extensively. The suffering comes not from the thinking itself, but from the relationship with the thinking. It comes from the belief that the thinking should stop, that it should be different, that it represents some kind of failure. It comes from fighting against the mind's nature, from judging it harshly, from demanding it be other than it is. What if the overthinking mind is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be worked with? What if these thoughts, even the uncomfortable ones, even the repetitive ones, are simply part of the weather pattern of this particular mind? Clouds aren't mistakes. Rain isn't broken weather. They're simply patterns that arise and pass. The mind that thinks deeply is often a mind that feels deeply, that cares deeply, that understands deeply. These qualities are not separate from the overthinking. They arise together. To wish away the overthinking might be to wish away the very qualities that make this mind special, valuable, capable of contributions others cannot make. There's a kind of arrogance in believing that overthinking can be permanently eliminated through the right technique or sufficient effort. Some minds are simply built this way. The wiring runs deep. And perhaps that's not a tragedy. Perhaps it's just a fact, neutral in itself, made painful only by the stories told about it. Consider that the goal might not be to stop overthinking, but to stop suffering about overthinking. To let the thoughts come and go like weather, without creating additional suffering through resistance and judgment. To develop such a friendly relationship with the mind that even when it's spinning, there's understanding rather than war. This doesn't mean passivity. It means working with the mind rather than against it. It means using the strategies that help while accepting that some degree of mental intensity will likely always be present. It means measuring progress not by the absence of overthinking, but by the ability to function well despite it, to find peace within it, to honor both the gifts it brings and the challenges it presents. The overthinker might never become someone who just laughs it off, and perhaps that's acceptable. Perhaps the world needs people who think deeply, who consider thoroughly, who understand that life is complex and deserves complex thought. The trick is learning to carry this gift lightly rather than letting it become crushing weight. Peace with overthinking doesn't mean the thinking stops. It means the war with it ends. It means developing such gentleness with the mind that even when it's active, when it's spinning through scenarios and analyzing possibilities, there's space around it. The thinking happens, but it doesn't consume everything. Some days will be harder than others. Some days the mind will spiral despite every practice, every intention, every technique. This too is part of the pattern. These difficult days don't represent failure. They're simply part of living with this particular mind. On these days, the practice is simply to breathe, to be kind, to remember that this will pass because everything does, to not add the suffering of self-judgment to the suffering of overthinking, to treat oneself as gently as one would treat a dear friend struggling with a difficult challenge. The overthinking mind is capable of remarkable things. It sees deeply, it understands complexity, It generates insight. It creates meaning. These capabilities exist because of the thinking, not despite it. The challenge is learning to harness these gifts while not being destroyed by their intensity. This is lifelong work. There is no final arrival, no permanent solution, no day when overthinking is conquered once and for all, but there can be growing skill at working with it. There can be increasing moments of peace within it. There can be deepening acceptance of this mind exactly as it is. And in that acceptance, something paradoxical happens. The overthinking often softens when it's no longer being fought, not because fighting it was keeping it alive, but because acceptance creates space for natural intelligence to operate. When the mind isn't using energy to fight itself, that energy becomes available for actually living. For those who live with overthinking minds, the invitation is not to become different people. It's to become more fully, more kindly, more skillfully who they already are. The invitation is to see the overthinking not as enemy, but as companion, perhaps an overzealous companion who needs gentle guidance, but companion nonetheless. This mind, with all its intensity, is the only mind available for this life. Rejecting it is rejecting a fundamental part of oneself. The invitation is to explore what becomes possible when the energy spent fighting overthinking is redirected toward actually living. What could be created with all that energy? What could be experienced? What relationships could deepen? What joy could be felt? The invitation is to trust that it's possible to live a full, meaningful, rich life, even with a mind that overthinks. Countless people do exactly this. They don't wait until their minds quiet down to start living. They live now, thoughts and all, with whatever peace is available in this moment. The invitation is to remember, especially on difficult days, that the mind's patterns don't define worth. A person is not more valuable when thinking less, or less valuable when thinking more. Value is inherent, not earned through mental quietude. The invitation is to be patient with the journey. Skills develop slowly. Understanding deepens gradually. Peace arrives in tiny increments, not dramatic breakthroughs. Every moment of noticing without judging, every instance of redirecting without harshness, every practice of self-compassion, these accumulate. They build a new relationship with the mind, not overnight, but over time. Closing reflection, 4 minutes. The overthinking mind is both burden and blessing, both challenge and gift. It carries intensity that can be exhausting and insight that can be illuminating. It processes the world with a thoroughness that sometimes paralyzes and sometimes produces genius. Those who live with such minds are not broken. They are not weak. They are not failing at being human. They're simply experiencing one particular way that human consciousness can manifest, one particular pattern of mental operation among many possible patterns. The world needs minds that think deeply. It needs people who consider consequences, who see complexity, who understand nuance. It needs the conscientiousness that often accompanies overthinking, the creativity it generates, the empathy it enables. But the world also needs these people to be at peace with themselves, to not be consumed by their own mental processes, to find ways to live fully despite and sometimes because of their intense inner lives. This is possible. Not easy, not quick, not linear, but possible. Thousands of overthinkers have found their way to greater peace while maintaining their depth, their insight, their particular way of engaging with existence. The journey involves learning to work with the mind rather than against it, to accept its nature while gently guiding its expression, to honor its gifts while not being destroyed by its intensity. It involves tremendous self-compassion, recognizing that this is genuinely difficult, that there's nothing wrong with finding it difficult, that difficulty doesn't indicate failure. It involves patience, understanding that change happens slowly, that peace develops in layers, that there will be setbacks and struggles alongside progress and growth. And it involves faith, a trust that a good life is possible even with a mind that never quite rests. That meaning can be found not despite the overthinking, but sometimes through it. And that this particular mind, with all its intensity, it involves faith, a trust that a good life is possible even with a mind that never quite rests. That meaning can be found not despite the overthinking, but sometimes through it. And that this particular mind, with all its intensity, is exactly the right mind for this particular life. The overthinking mind may never become quiet, but it can become gentle. It can become a source of insight rather than only torment. It can be befriended, worked with, even appreciated for the gifts it brings. This is the path forward, not elimination, but integration. Not fighting, but understanding. Not rejection, but acceptance. Not conquest, but compassion. For every overthinker reading this, know that the struggle is real and valid. Know that peace is possible without perfection. Know that this mind, your mind, with all its intensity, is worthy of kindness. The thoughts will come. Let them. The analysis will happen. Allow it. But within all of this, perhaps there can also be peace, presence, and the recognition that life is happening now, in this moment. Thoughts and all. This is enough. You are enough. Even with the overthinking, especially with it, because it's part of what makes you, you. And that is not a problem to solve. It's a reality to embrace, to work with, to live within as fully and as kindly as possible. The mind that thinks deeply can also rest gently, not by forcing quietness, but by allowing space, not by demanding stillness, but by practicing presence, not by achieving perfection, but by offering compassion. This is the way forward. This is the invitation. This is the peace that's possible, right here, right now, in this moment, regardless of what the mind is doing. And that is enough. There's a dimension to overthinking that often goes unnoticed. The body holds what the mind keeps churning. Every repeated thought creates a physical signature. Every mental loop leaves traces in muscle and tissue. The overthinking doesn't just happen in the head, it reverberates through the entire system. Notice how the shoulders rise when thoughts spiral. Feel how the jaw clenches during mental analysis. Observe the shallow breathing that accompanies worry. The chest tightens, the stomach knots, the hands clench. The body becomes a repository for all the tension that thinking creates. This is not metaphor, this is physiology. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between real threats and imagined ones. When the mind generates anxious scenarios, the body responds as if those scenarios are happening now. Stress hormones flood the system. Heart rate increases, digestion slows, the body prepares for danger that exists only in thought. Over time, this creates patterns. The body learns to hold tension as its default state. Even when the mind briefly quiets, the physical holding remains. The muscles have memorized the pattern. The nervous system has adapted to constant alertness. The overthinking has become embodied. This is why mental strategies alone sometimes fall short. The thinking can shift, but if the body still holds the pattern, the thoughts return. The cycle continues because it's not just mental anymore, it's physiological. Releasing this requires attention to the body as much as the mind, gentle stretching that invites tension to release, massage that unknots what thought has tied up, breathing practices that remind the nervous system that safety is possible. Somatic experiencing that allows the body to complete stress cycles it began but never finished. Sometimes a good cry releases more than hours of analysis ever could. Sometimes a primal scream into a pillow does what thinking cannot. Sometimes shaking the body, literally trembling and releasing, moves what mental processing cannot budge. The body has its own wisdom, its own ways of processing, its own intelligence that doesn't require thought. Learning to listen to it, to honor its signals, to allow its natural release mechanisms, this becomes essential for the overthinker. Because the mind alone cannot solve what the body also carries. Overthinking doesn't happen in isolation. It profoundly affects relationships, and relationships profoundly affect it. There's a social ecology to the overthinking mind that deserves exploration. The overthinker often exhausts those around them. The constant need for reassurance, the repeated discussions of the same concerns, the analysis of every interaction. Friends and partners may grow weary of providing the same comfort repeatedly, of addressing worries that never quite resolve, of navigating the intensity that overthinking brings to every exchange. Yet often, the overthinker knows this and feels deep shame about it. I'm too much. I'm exhausting. I should be able to handle this alone. This shame creates more overthinking, which creates more need for reassurance, which creates more shame. The cycle feeds itself through social anxiety. There's also the challenge of communication. The overthinker processes internally before speaking, running through multiple drafts of what to say, considering how words might be received, anticipating reactions. By the time they speak, the spontaneity is gone, or they don't speak at all, having thought themselves out of sharing. Meanwhile, others may perceive this as distance, coldness, or disengagement, never knowing the internal storm happening beneath the silence. Misunderstandings multiply. A casual comment is received as criticism and analyzed for hours. A moment of silence is interpreted as rejection and examined from every angle. The overthinker reads meaning into everything, often meaning that wasn't intended, creating rifts based on overthought interpretations rather than actual events. Yet there's another side. The overthinker often makes a deeply attentive friend. They remember details others forget. They notice when something is wrong. They think carefully about what others need. Their tendency to analyze means they often understand people at levels others don't access. Their intensity, while sometimes overwhelming, also means they care deeply and love thoroughly. The key lies in finding people who understand, who can hold space for the intensity without being consumed by it, who can offer gentle redirection when overthinking spirals without making the overthinker feel judged. These relationships become lifelines, safe harbors where the overthinking mind can rest somewhat, knowing it's accepted even at its most intense. Learning to communicate about the overthinking helps too. I'm spiraling right now and need help grounding is different from silently drowning in thoughts. I'm going to overthink this, so please bear with me, creates understanding rather than confusion. Naming the pattern to trusted others brings it into the light where it has less power. And sometimes the overthinker needs to learn to protect others from the full intensity of their mental process, not through suppression, but through appropriate boundaries. Not every thought needs to be shared. Not every analysis needs to be verbalized. Some processing can happen privately, through writing or internal dialogue, reserving shared space for what truly needs another's input. The social world is complex for the overthinking mind, but relationships also offer medicine that thinking alone cannot provide. Genuine connection, physical presence, shared laughter, moments of being seen and accepted exactly as one is, complete with the overthinking. These moments remind the overthinker that they're not alone, not broken, not too much for the world to hold. There's a point where overthinking crosses from challenging to harmful, from uncomfortable to dangerous. This line must be acknowledged with honesty and care. When overthinking prevents basic functioning, when getting out of bed becomes impossible because every reason to rise is countered by reasons to stay, when eating is delayed indefinitely because no choice feels right, when relationships deteriorate because interaction requires energy that endless thinking has depleted, this is no longer just overthinking. This is thinking that has become debilitating. When thoughts turn repeatedly to self-harm, when the mental loops convince the mind that existence itself is unbearable, when overthinking about worthlessness spirals into genuine belief in worthlessness, professional help is not optional. It's essential. The line between intense thinking and mental health crisis must be recognized and respected. When overthinking creates complete isolation, when the fear of being judged for the thinking leads to withdrawal from all connection, when loneliness deepens because reaching out feels impossible, intervention becomes necessary. Humans are social beings. Isolation intensifies mental patterns. Connection is not luxury, it's necessity. When physical health deteriorates, when sleep becomes impossible night after night, when eating disorders develop from overthinking about food, when stress-related illness manifests, the body is sending urgent signals that cannot be ignored. The mind and body are not separate. When thinking harms the body, the whole system is in crisis. There's no shame in seeking help. Therapy is not admission of failure. Medication is not weakness. Support groups are not last resorts. These are tools, resources, forms of care that millions of people use to live better lives. The overthinker who seeks help is not giving up. They're being wise enough to recognize when the mind needs assistance, it cannot provide itself. Some overthinking is manageable with the practices discussed earlier. Some requires professional intervention. Knowing the difference, being honest about which category one's experience falls into, this honesty can be life-saving. There's bravery in admitting, I need help, I cannot give myself. Perhaps the hardest truth for the overthinker to accept: change takes time. Real, lasting change in thought patterns doesn't happen quickly. The mind has spent years, perhaps decades, developing these pathways. They won't dissolve in weeks or even months. This is deeply frustrating for the overthinker who wants to think their way out of overthinking, who wants to analyze the problem and implement the perfect solution and be done. But the mind doesn't work this way. Change happens slowly, incrementally, through thousands of small choices over extended time. There will be good days and terrible days, periods of progress followed by what feels like regression, times when the practices seem to work and times when nothing helps. This non-linear journey frustrates the overthinking mind that wants clear progress, measurable improvement, guaranteed results. Patience becomes the practice, not passive waiting, but active patience that continues showing up even when progress feels invisible. The gardener doesn't dig up seeds to check if they're growing. The gardener waters, provides sunlight, and trusts the process that cannot be forced or rushed. Each moment of noticing overthinking without judgment is growth, even if it doesn't feel like it. Each time awareness arises, even if the thought pattern continues, something is shifting. Each practice attempted, even if it seems ineffective, is training the mind in new possibilities. The changes are happening beneath the surface long before they become visible. Years from now, looking back, the overthinker may realize how much has shifted. Not that overthinking disappeared, but that the relationship with it transformed. That peace became more accessible. That suffering decreased, even while thinking remained. That life became fuller despite the busy mind. This long view helps when immediate results don't appear. The practice is not to fix overthinking by tomorrow. It's to gradually, gently, patiently develop a different way of being with this mind. And that worthy work takes all the time it takes. What if overthinking isn't just a problem to manage, but also carries meaning to discover? What if the specific patterns of thought, the particular worries that recur, the themes that dominate mental space, what if these point towards something important? The mind that repeatedly worries about being a burden might be touching a deeper question about worthiness and belonging. The thoughts that spiral around control might be highlighting a need to trust, to surrender, to accept uncertainty. The analysis that prevents action might be protecting against some feared outcome that deserves gentle exploration. This doesn't mean overthinking is good or should be encouraged. It means that sometimes, beneath the surface noise, there's signal, there's information. There's some part of the psyche trying to communicate something important, even if it's doing so clumsily through endless thought. Approaching overthinking with curiosity rather than just frustration opens new possibilities. What is this pattern trying to protect me from? What does this particular worry say about my deeper values? What am I actually afraid of beneath all this thinking? These questions don't need to be overthought, ironically. They can be held lightly, asked gently, allowed to percolate without demanding immediate answers. But they shift the relationship with overthinking from pure adversary to potential teacher. Sometimes what masquerades as overthinking is actually intuition trying to break through, a deeper knowing that the conscious mind dismisses, but the unconscious keeps pushing forward. Sometimes the repetitive thoughts about a relationship, a job, a life direction carry wisdom that deserves attention, even if the form it takes feels obsessive. The practice becomes discernment, learning to distinguish between thought patterns that are purely anxiety-driven and patterns that carry genuine insight, between mental loops that serve nothing and analysis that's pointing toward needed change. This discernment develops over time through observation, through trial and error, through learning to feel the difference between thoughts that agitate and thoughts that, even if uncomfortable, somehow feel true. Finding meaning doesn't eliminate overthinking, but it transforms it from pure burden into something more complex, something that occasionally offers gifts, even while often creating struggle. And that complexity, that both and, feels more honest than either pure rejection or pure acceptance. For many, the struggle with overthinking eventually touches spiritual questions. Questions about the nature of self, the purpose of suffering, the possibility of peace beyond the mind's understanding. The overthinking mind can become its own kind of spiritual practice, though not a pleasant one. It forces encounter with fundamental questions. Who am I beyond these thoughts? Is there an observer of the thinking that is not itself thought? Can peace exist even while the mind churns? Many spiritual traditions address the thinking mind directly. Buddhism speaks of monkey mind, the restless, chattering nature of uncontrolled thought. Hindu philosophy distinguishes between the true self and the thinking self. Christian contemplatives speak of the cloud of unknowing, the surrender of thought in favor of direct experience of the divine. These traditions offer practices developed over millennia for working with the busy mind: meditation, prayer, contemplation, silence. Not as cures for overthinking, but as ways of relating to it differently. Ways of finding the space around the thoughts, the awareness that holds them without being defined by them. For some overthinkers, spiritual practice becomes essential, not because it stops the thinking, but because it provides context. The thoughts become weather patterns moving through a vast sky of awareness. They come, they go, but the sky remains unchanged by them. This isn't easy for the overthinker to grasp because it's not conceptual, it's experiential. The mind that tries to understand spiritually often just creates more thinking about spirituality, more analysis of meditation, more overthinking about how to stop overthinking. The spiritual path for the overthinker requires a kind of surrender that feels dangerous to a mind that seeks safety through control. Yet something profound can happen when that surrender occurs, even briefly, when the thinking is recognized as just thinking, not truth, not self, not ultimate reality, when presence is touched directly, without the mediation of thought. These moments don't come from effort, but from a kind of letting go that the overthinker finds deeply difficult, yet desperately needs. Faith enters here, though not necessarily religious faith. Faith that something exists beyond the thinking mind. Faith that peace is possible even without figuring everything out. Faith that life can be trusted to unfold without needing to mentally control every aspect of it. This spiritual dimension doesn't replace practical strategies, it complements them. The overthinker might practice grounding techniques while also exploring meditation, might develop thought management skills while also investigating the nature of the self that notices thoughts, might work with a therapist while also engaging spiritual practice. The spiritual inquiry asks, who is the one overthinking? If thoughts can be observed, who is the observer? If patterns can be noticed, what is the noticer? These questions don't have mental answers. They point toward direct experience of something beyond thought, something that the overthinking mind can touch when it finally, briefly, exhausts itself and becomes still. Eventually, working with overthinking becomes not just about mental techniques, but about life design, about creating an existence that supports the peace the overthinker seeks rather than constantly triggering the patterns they're trying to manage. This means examining everything. The job that demands constant multitasking might keep the overthinking mind in perpetual overdrive. The relationship that requires constant emotional processing might feed the very patterns trying to be calmed. The living situation filled with chaos and noise might prevent the quiet the mind desperately needs. Some overthinkers need more structure than others. Regular routines that reduce daily decisions. Predictable patterns that create safety for the nervous system, simplicity that decreases the number of things requiring analysis and thought. Others need more spaciousness, schedules that aren't packed, white space in the calendar, time for nothing, because nothing allows the mind to finally settle, room to breathe without constant demands that trigger overthinking about performance, expectations, and outcomes. The physical environment matters more than typically acknowledged. Clutter creates mental clutter for many overthinkers. Visual complexity translates to mental complexity. Creating spaces that feel calm, organized, and simple can reduce the external input that feeds internal overthinking. Relationships need evaluation too. Which connections support groundedness and which amplify anxiety? Who offers space for the mind to rest and who demands constant mental energy? This isn't about cutting people off, but about honest assessment of which relationships nourish and which deplete. Technology use requires particular attention in modern life. The constant connectivity, the infinite scroll, the news cycle, the social media comparison, all of this provides endless material for the overthinking mind to process. Setting boundaries with technology isn't anti-social, it's self-protective. Work needs to align somewhat with the overthinker's nature. Jobs requiring quick surface-level responses all day might be torture for the deep processor. Conversely, work that values thoroughness, analysis, attention to detail might harness the overthinking tendency productively. Finding the right fit isn't always possible, but awareness helps. Creating a life that supports peace also means building in regular practices of restoration. Whatever actually helps needs to become non-negotiable. If walking in nature quiets the mind, it's not luxury, it's medicine. If creative expression releases mental tension, it's not hobby, it's necessity. If time with certain people brings calm, it's not optional. It's essential. This might mean disappointing others, saying no to invitations because quiet evening alone is needed more, declining opportunities because the mental cost outweighs the benefit, protecting boundaries that others don't understand. The overthinker often struggles with this because saying no triggers overthinking about others' reactions. But protecting one's own peace eventually must take priority. Life design for the overthinker is ongoing work. What supports peace changes over time. Regular check-ins help. Is this still working? Does this still serve? What needs to shift? The goal isn't perfect life, but responsive life, one that adjusts as needs change. After all the discussion of challenge and struggle, it's worth returning to what overthinking teaches, the wisdom it cultivates, the gifts it gives to those who carry it. Overthinkers develop extraordinary emotional intelligence. The same sensitivity that causes overthinking about their own thoughts creates attunement to others. They read rooms accurately, They sense undercurrents. They understand complexity in human dynamics that others miss entirely. This is not small thing. They develop humility. The overthinking mind knows how complicated things are, how many perspectives exist, how much uncertainty permeates life. This knowing prevents arrogance, creates openness, fosters genuine respect for how little anyone truly knows for certain. They develop capacity for complexity. In a world that often wants simple answers, black and white thinking, easy categories, the overthinker holds nuance. They see gray, they understand both, and rather than either or. This cognitive complexity is increasingly valuable in a world facing problems that have no simple solutions. They develop deep creativity. The mind that generates endless thoughts also generates endless possibilities. Many artists, writers, innovators, problem solvers are overthinkers. Their minds produce the raw material that, when channeled well, becomes innovation, beauty, breakthrough. They develop philosophical depth. Spending so much time in thought naturally leads to big questions. What is a good life? What really matters? What is worth caring about? The overthinker often develops a richness of inner life, a philosophical orientation that brings meaning even amidst struggle. They develop empathy born from suffering. Having struggled with their own minds, overthinkers often develop profound compassion for others' struggles. They know what internal battle looks like. They don't minimize others' pain. They understand that invisible struggles are real struggles. These aren't consolation prizes. These are genuine gifts that the overthinking mind develops precisely because it works the way it does. The same pattern that creates difficulty also creates depth. And that depth matters. In a world that often values speed over depth, surface over substance, action over reflection, the overthinker offers something different and needed. Yes, they pay a cost for it, but they also contribute something valuable that would be lost if everyone thought quickly, shallowly, carelessly. Recognizing this doesn't eliminate the struggle, but it adds dimension to it. The overthinking is not pure liability. It's mixed, complex, challenging, and valuable simultaneously, and perhaps that's the most honest way to see it. For anyone carrying an overthinking mind, these final words are offered with deep respect for the difficulty of what is carried and deep faith in the possibility of peace. The journey is long, and that's acceptable. Quick fixes don't exist for patterns this deep. But every step matters, every practice attempted, every moment of awareness, every act of self-compassion. These accumulate in ways that become visible only in retrospect. There will be setbacks, and that's normal. Progress isn't linear. Some days will feel like returning to square one, but nothing is lost. Skills learned don't disappear. Understanding developed doesn't vanish. Even on hard days, something has shifted from when this journey began. Community exists and connection helps. Others walk this same path. Finding them, whether in person or online, whether through therapy or friendship or support groups, reduces the isolation that makes overthinking feel impossible to bear. Professional help is available, and using it is wisdom. If overthinking crosses into crisis, if functioning becomes truly impaired, if suffering becomes unbearable, reach out. Therapists, counselors, psychiatrists, these are trained helpers who work with exactly these struggles. Using their expertise is strength, not weakness. Hope is reasonable, and cynicism isn't required. Yes, complete cessation of overthinking may never come, but significant improvement absolutely can. Countless people have found ways to live peaceful, meaningful lives alongside overthinking minds. Their existence proves it's possible. Let their experience create hope. Acceptance is powerful, and fighting is exhausting. The moment the war with the mind ends, energy becomes available for actually living. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means working with rather than against. And that shift changes everything. Kindness toward oneself is essential, not optional. The overthinker has suffered enough from their own mind. Adding self-cruelty multiplies suffering unnecessarily. Every instance of self-compassion is healing. Every moment of self-kindness matters. Life is happening now, not later when the mind finally quiets. Waiting for perfect peace before living fully means never living at all. Life is now, thoughts and all, and now contains possibility, beauty, meaning, connection, even amidst the overthinking. The overthinking mind is worthy of kindness, worthy of patience, worthy of respect. It's intense, yes, challenging, absolutely, but also capable of profound depth, rich insight, genuine wisdom. It's not a mind to reject, but a mind to work with, to gradually befriend, to honor, even while learning to prevent it from causing harm. Peace is possible. Not perfect, permanent peace, but real, substantial, meaningful peace. Peace that grows over time. Peace that becomes more accessible, even while thoughts remain. Peace that exists not despite the overthinking, but alongside it, around it, within the spaces between thoughts. This peace is what the journey offers. Not the absence of thoughts, but the presence of space. Not the death of overthinking, but the birth of a new relationship with it. Not the end of struggle, but the development of skill in working with struggle. And that is truly enough. That is real progress. That is the peace possible for the overthinking mind, and it is worth every moment of the journey it takes to find it. The mind will continue thinking, let it. But perhaps now, with practice, with patience, with compassion, with time, there can also be peace. Not perfect peace, real peace, human peace. Peace that includes the thinking rather than requiring its absence. This is the invitation. This is the possibility. This is what waits for those willing to walk the path with gentleness toward themselves and faith in the process. The overthinking mind can find its way home, not to a place without thoughts, but to a place where thoughts are just thoughts, where peace exists regardless, where life is lived fully, deeply, meaningfully, exactly as it is. And that is not just enough. That is everything.